beings, PowerGamer here. It appears I've recently been infected with a very rare condition called Kingdom Hearts fever, and the only way to cure it is by playing more Kingdom Hearts, though the version I specifically have only works with Chain of Memories. I thought that was a little too specific, but hey, if you can't trust WebMD, who can you trust?
Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, when things really started to go loopy. The second entry in the Kingdom Hearts series before what people thought was the second entry released 2 years later. Yeah, this was the first side game in the Kingdom Hearts timeline, which was the beginning of when the series started to lose people with its overarching story and continuity, since, well, it wasn't really a side game, it was just as important to the story as the numbered titles. But why did they decide to do that in the first place? Well, the idea for a Kingdom Hearts game between main number titles came when Tetsuya Nomura and the rest of the team were developing ideas for the second game. It was originally going to be called Kingdom Hearts Lost Memories, as it was intended to focus on the theme of, well, memories, though it was later changed to better reflect the story outline. It was mainly intended to bridge the gap between the first two games. In particular, it would provide an explanation for why the characters' abilities were reset. While the first Kingdom Hearts game was released for the PS2, and the second one was going to be as well, Chain of Memories was developed for the Game Boy Advance, which Nomura was hesitant about, but he changed his mind after apparently hearing that some kids wanted to be able to play the first game on the go. So after exploring some ideas, he felt like it could be possible. He also wanted to give the game a lighter tone than its predecessor. It was announced alongside Kingdom Hearts 2 at the Tokyo Game Show in 2003, which mainly highlighted the game's visuals and battle system, though most of the story details were kept secret. Chain of Memories was released on November 11th, 2004 in Japan, December 7th in North America, January 13th, 2005 in Australia, and May 6th in Europe. And sales were interesting since it sold over 100,000 copies within 48 hours in Japan, which was unheard of for the Game Boy Advance, yet it ended up being one of the lower selling games in the series with only 1.5 million copies, which was still a success. Reception was mostly positive, though that was mainly for the visuals. The gameplay, and especially the battle system, was more on the mixed side. And nowadays, the game isn't a very popular title in the series. Most fans agree you should just skip it or read a plot synopsis or something. But it was later fully remade for the PS2 as Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories as a bonus for Kingdom Hearts 2's final mix release, which is the version that was included in the 1.5 collection, and by extension, the other re-releases, but I'll be sticking with the original version today, so we're gonna be taking a break from the story so far pack.
I've heard pretty mixed things about this game over the years, so I'm not entirely sure how I'm gonna feel about it, but either way, it's the next chapter in the Kingdom Hearts saga, and there is no way in hell I'm gonna make the same mistake that most people did back in 2006, so let's see what this entry holds.
The game picks up right where the first Kingdom Hearts left off, with Sora, Donald, and Goofy chasing after Pluto, who has a letter in his mouth from King Mickey. But they seem to be unable to catch up to him, as we then cut to them sleeping in the middle of a field at night. Sora hears a strange noise and finds this weird-looking person in a black coat who taunts him and runs off. Sora chases after them, with Donald and Goofy following suit, eventually arriving at this mysterious castle. Upon heading inside, the hooded figure says they've just stepped foot into Castle Oblivion, where to find is to lose and to lose is to find, which is a fancy way of saying the castle is a way of screwing with their memories, as they've forgotten just about every ability they learned in the first game. The hooded figure says that if Sora and pals want to find who they're looking for, i.e. Riku and Mickey, they need to climb up the various floors of the castle and go through their old memories. They also throw Sora a card and say he'll need to play by the castle's rules, which this somehow connects to. With seemingly no other choice, Sora, Donald, and Goofy make their way up the castle, but unbeknownst to them, the hooded figure is a member of the organization that rules the castle and are planning on using Sora for some sort of conspiracy plan that they're working on. The stakes are a lot lower than the first game was, which makes sense given how this is a GBA game and not a PS2 game, though personally, I don't think it's anywhere near as good from a story or writing perspective. The first game could be a little messy and maybe pretentious at times, but the story worked well enough because it was mainly just about a kid trying to find his friends and stop a strange villain. And the characters were pretty likable, but here it's honestly more about planting seeds for the next game rather than really fleshing out stuff for this one, because most of the plot is really bare bones and a lot of the character choices don't make sense. Like, Sora and pals only really climb up the castle because it's convenient for them. There isn't that much of a strong motivation for them to keep going, aside from the fact that they're in too deep and have to finish what they started. I mean, they are technically looking for Riku and Mickey, but they have no idea if they're actually here or not, so it doesn't really add much. And while there is another motivation set up later, it doesn't work very well for reasons I'll explain later. For now, I'll just say that much of the game feels undercooked, especially the organization, since we don't learn that much about them, and the character writing is a lot weaker than it was last time. Now, thankfully, the presentation is still really solid. The sprite work for this game looks great. The GBA was capable of some fantastic pixel art, and this game might be one of the best looking things on the system, which sadly can cause a bit of lag, but that only happens when there's a bunch of enemies on screen. There's even a handful of FMV scenes, which look really crunchy, but still, it's cool that they were able to put something at least slightly comparable to the PS2 on the freaking Game Boy Advance. And while the music is pretty compressed due to the limited hardware, the tracks still sound really good. Though part of that might be because most of the music is reused from the first game, but whatever, it's still good music, so I'm not gonna complain.
Now, on a glance, that you might think this game is just a 2D version of the original Kingdom Hearts on the PS2, and in some cases it basically is, though in other cases, it really isn't.
Unlike Kingdom Hearts 1, which had you traveling to different worlds via the Gummy Ship, Chain of Memories takes place entirely in Castle Oblivion. There's 13 floors total, and each one acts as a different stage. Before entering a floor, Sora has to select from one of these memory cards that are given to him at different points of the story. As the name implies, these are based off of Sora's memories and determine which world that the floor will transform into. Because of this, every single world is based off of one from the first game, with only 2 exceptions, and the worlds are only illusions and not real. So there's honestly not much of a reason to want to do stuff in these worlds besides needing to make progress. The first game felt like you were actually doing something, since you were not only helping the world's inhabitants deal with the Heartless and their respective villains, but you were also sealing the keyhole shut to prevent the Heartless from destroying the world. But here you just kind of show up and do an abridged version of what you did in the first game, which was already a slightly abridged version of what happened in the Disney movie. An abridge of an abridge, which is as underwhelming as it sounds. None of the worlds leave any tangible impact since what's happening in them isn't real. The only story progression happens in between floors when we get the discussions from Sora and pals or the organization. But what if you don't care about that and just want a Kingdom Hearts-like experience on the go? Well, then you're probably going to be even more disappointed because this is where the game really differs. Unlike the first game where enemies just pop up and you fight them like normal, here encountering enemies takes you to a battle screen much like a traditional turn-based RPG, and this is where you'll discover the game's new battle system. Remember how I said Sora had to play by the castle's rules by using a card? Well, pretty much everything in this game revolves around cards, and that includes the combat. Yes, Chain of Memories is a card game. Every action you do in this game besides jumping with the B button requires you to play a card with the A button, which then causes Sora to do that action. Swinging your Keyblade, casting spells, summoning allies, everything requires a card. Once a card is placed, you move on to your next card, and when you run out, you have to hold the button to reload them. After all the enemies are killed, the battle is over, and you can move on. But this doesn't just apply to Sora, enemies use cards as well, and this is where things get fancy. Each card has a number on it, and if 2 cards are placed at the same time, the higher number card cancels out the lower one. And if a higher number card is active, a lower number card can't be used until it goes away. Unless it's a 0 card, which will cancel out any card if placed first, but can be cancelled out by any card if it placed last. Where things get even more complex is by pushing both shoulder buttons at the same time, you'll set a card aside. If you set 3 aside and push the button again, you'll use all of them at once. The number values are added together, and all 3 actions will take place in a row. However, as you go through the game, you can learn slights, which when using the correct combination of 3 cards, allow for a special action like a super strong Keyblade technique or a more powerful spell. But the catch is that the first card in the slight won't be reloaded into your deck until the battle is over, or you use a special item card to get it back. Though these cards can only be used once, and if your opponent cancels them out, then it's just gone.
So yeah, what we have here is a card game that is not turn-based, which might not sound like a bad thing, but if you know anything about how card games work, you'll probably see the problems pretty quickly.
Chain of Memories is one of the most unbalanced games I have ever played in my entire life. Because high number cards cancel out lower ones, that means if you use them correctly, you will destroy every enemy you come across without even trying, but if you use them incorrectly, you will get absolutely demolished and there's nothing you can do about it. Now obviously the point is to come up with a unique strategy, but this game doesn't really allow for stuff like that. Some slights are clearly better than others, so there isn't that much of a need to experiment once you figure out which one's the best. And even if you can't do that, just use nothing but high number cards and enemies won't be able to do anything. Most of the basic enemies in this game put up no fight whatsoever, aside from ones that can only be hit from the back, which is really annoying since they turn around instantly, and the boss fights are either mindlessly easy or a giant pain in the butt. There is no in between. Either you break the game or the game breaks you. The main challenge doesn't come from trying to come up with a unique strategy for whatever lies ahead, it just comes down to whether or not the game will cooperate in the first place with giving you helpful cards. The only way you can get cards in this game is by finding them inside things like chests and boxes, or by purchasing them from these Moogle shops, but everything from whether or not you get cards to what cards you actually get is entirely luck-based. Chests only show up in certain rooms, and while you have slight control over when you get them, for reasons I'll explain in a minute, you have no control over what will actually be in them. And the same applies to the Moogle shops. You can purchase cards with Moogle points, which you get very rarely, and have to pay at least 100 points for a deck. Thing is, the deck you buy is completely random, and you only get 1 card of your choice, which you can't see until you've already made the purchase. You can sell cards you don't want, but you still need to sell a ton of them just to get 1 card that may or may not be useful. So your best bet for getting a card that are actually helpful is saving before you go to the shop, buying a pack, and then resaying the game if it's not something you actually want. You do get a free pack for talking to a Moogle for the first time, but again, it's completely random what you get. This also means fighting enemies doesn't really make a difference. You can gain experience and level up, but since damage is tied to the cards, the only things you get are more health, new slights, and more card points. Card points are what mainly goes into building your deck, and they have a very unfortunate acronym. In between battles, you actually have to build your deck, which determines what cards you'll be using, though each card costs card points, and typically the stronger the card, the more points it costs. Now I'm sure to card game fans, this is the most enjoyable part of Chain of Memories, but sadly I don't play card games, so this does nothing for me. I mean, I tried to make some solid decks with specific setups to get the slights I wanted, but like I said earlier, that can only get me so far. The only cards that don't go into your deck are your support cards. Sporadically throughout the fights, cards of Donald, Goofy, and whatever extra character you can get in certain worlds will pop up randomly. If you grab them before they disappear, you can summon the character who will help you. Donald will will cast 2 random spells, Goofy will charge forward with a shield, and the others will do whatever it is they do. You can also push the select button to get a villain card, which you get from random enemies or defeating bosses. These can have some solid perks like recharging your health or resurrecting you upon death, but you can only use them once per battle, and they cost a ton of card points.
So yeah, I can't say I'm a fan of this game's battle system because of how unbalanced it is and the fact that most of it revolves around luck, but it is somehow nowhere near as severe as the one thing that I absolutely hate about this game, the progression system.
The way you move through each world is one of the most obnoxious things I've ever seen in a game. All of them are divided into rooms, and each door requires the use of a map card to enter it. Map cards also have numbers on them, and you need one that matches whatever the door asks for. They come in 3 different colors and a bunch of different styles. Which one you select determines what will be in the room, like basic enemies, stronger enemies, a save point, treasure, or a Moogle shop, which I genuinely didn't realize until I was almost done with the game. Now, the only way to get map cards is by defeating enemies. Every time you finish an enemy encounter, you're given a map card, but what card you get is completely random. So that means your progression is based entirely around luck. Now, normally this isn't that big of an issue. If you fight at least 1 enemy per room, you'll generally be able to get through every door. But there's a catch. Every world contains 4 crown rooms, which require a key that you're given automatically when you start the world and go through those rooms. First the key to beginnings, then the key of guidance, and finally the key of truth. There's also the 4th one called the key to rewards, but those are rare and just give you optional stuff. These rooms are ones that are required to progress and continue what little story the worlds actually have. All that happens is you share some dialogue, get the next key, and fight a boss on the 2nd or 3rd one. But these rooms don't just require their special keys, they require specific map cards as well. Sometimes it's just a certain color, sometimes it's a bunch that add until the number reaches 0, and sometimes it's a certain color and a certain number. Now most of the time this isn't a big deal, but every once in a while you'll get one that requires one very specific type of card that you either don't have or used earlier because it was the only one that helped with a previous door. So this means you need to run around grinding enemies until the game gives you the exact type of card you need, which again is completely luck-based. This is easily the dumbest thing in the game. There were multiple areas where I spent over 20 minutes just grinding away at random enemies because the game gave me every possible card except for the one that I needed. I'm convinced this thing knows what you're looking for and it's programmed to not give it to you because I cannot believe how long it took to get a card of the right number or even just the right color. Like here, all I need is 1 green card, but the game will only give me red and blue, and when I finally get a green one, it was worth 0, meaning it wasn't actually helpful. I freaking hate this progression system. It was the #1 thing that wasted my time throughout the game. But the worst part is that the rooms only have a set number of enemies that spawn, so if you're really unlucky, you'll completely run out of enemies and by extension, cards, meaning you'll have to leave the floor and come back, which resets everything aside from the key doors.
The amount of my time that this game wasted with this stupid progression system is frankly ridiculous. I absolutely hated it, and I am so glad that this is the only game in the Kingdom Hearts series that actually uses it. Crap.
The only other things worth noting are Jiminy Cricket is still here, and once again he keeps a journal that summarizes the plot and characters. You can strike enemies to stun them for a second when the battle starts, but only the enemies that are there at the beginning, since more spawn in later. And sometimes you can get a premium bonus, which enhances the strength of one of your cards, though I have no idea how this happens since I only got it once, and which card it enhances is, again, luck-based. So now it's time to go over the rest of the story. After the hooded figure gives the card to Sora, the trio wind up in an illusion of Traverse Town. They teach Sora the rules of the castle cards, which is just a tutorial section, and say that Donald and Goofy won't be able to follow him through the memory worlds, which is just an explanation of why you can only summon them. The figure says Sora will meet someone important to him and then vanishes. You then make your way through Traverse Town, and along the way, Sora reunites with illusions of Squall, Yuffie, and Aerith, and while they don't remember him, they seem to know his name and vice versa, and Squall gives Sora another tutorial. They talk a bit more about how Sora's memories must be affecting them, meet Sid, and are attacked by the guard armor from the first game. Because of the card battle system, most of the boss fights are interchangeable aside from whatever these special cards do when allowing you to hurt them. This one falls apart and let you attack any part of the body with ease. The Final Fantasy crew gives Sora a pep talk and then they leave, but Aerith warns Sora to not be deceived by illusions that lie ahead, as his memory can sometimes lead him astray. Upon leaving, they run into the hooded figure again, but then they're jumped by this red-haired guy named Axel, who fights them. The only thing really noteworthy about his boss fight is that he uses fire magic. Axel gives them more world cards, revealing that this was all a test, and tells them to trust what they remember and seek what they forget, as their most precious memories lie deep in their hearts. And apparently Sora has forgotten what's important to him, but if he finds it, then he may no longer be him. On the next floor, Jiminy Cricket struggles to understand what that means, just like the audience, but Sora says he'll be fine, though everyone struggles to remember the name of Hollow Bastion from the last game, meaning they've already begun to lose some of their memories. You're then given a choice of the order of worlds you go in, which is kinda neat, so I'm just gonna go with Wonderland. They quickly find the White Rabbit running late for a trial, so they follow him and discover the Queen of Hearts blames Alice for allegedly stealing her memories. To protect her, Sora says that he stole her memories, which then causes him to fight off her card soldiers. Sora, Donald, and Goofy run away, and eventually find Alice. Then the Cheshire Cat shows up and says the Queen won't leave them alone until she gets her memory back. But he also says that your memory can lie to you if you try too hard to remember something before vanishing. They're caught by the queen, but she forgets again, and they're all attacked by the trickmaster. Just keep wailing on it until it dies, and sometimes you'll get the table and chair to appear. After killing it, Alice says the queen commanded them to destroy the Heartless, and because of her ego, she just goes along with it, letting them go free. It is a good thing she's an idiot. Upon leaving, Goofy still struggles to remember the name of the old castle, and Jiminy discovers his notebooks have been wiped clean. They then realize what the cloaked figure said about finding and losing means the further they go up in the castle, the more memories they'll lose. Donald contemplates turning back, but Goofy insists they continue because they won't forget the important stuff like their friends.
Yeah, the dumb one is probably not the best person to listen to.
We also see this blonde girl drawing something. I'm sure that's not important. Next time, go into the Olympus Coliseum, where they see an announcement for the Survival Cup, where contestants compete in an obstacle course and battle each other for a chance to fight Hercules. So Sora and crew decide to enter, with Hades hiring Cloud to enter as well, in exchange for restoring his lost memories. Sora meets Phil, who says they're not true heroes, so they can't enter, but Hercules comes to back them up. Cloud also joins, and the game begins. Cloud then challenges Sora to a fight where he just slashes his sword, and when you beat him, he runs off. You then find him already defeated by Hercules, but when Sora tries to join in, Hades shows up and reveals their deal before deciding to deal with you himself. All he does is throw fireballs. When you beat him, Phil cancels the cup, Cloud apologizes, and gives Sora his card to summon him later. Next floor, Donald worries about the king, and Sora worries about Riku. We then see Axel speaking with another organization member named Larxene about how Sora managed to keep his feelings even after becoming a Heartless, which has only happened one other time, and apparently the organization exists to unlock the secrets of the heart. Donald and Goofy worry about forgetting their friends, but Sora says he won't since he still has Kyrie's good luck charm, though his memory of her seems to get a little fuzzy. Now I'm up to Agrabah, where we help Aladdin fend off some Heartless, but it ends up being too much, so he wishes for Genie to get rid of them. We then get the spiel about how he wants to use Genie to win Jasmine's love and stop Jafar, but he only has 3 wishes, and Genie wants to be set free. They find Jasmine being attacked by Heartless, and Aladdin uses another wish to save her. Fight some more, and then Jafar steals the lamp, making him Genie's new master, and he wishes for him to take Jasmine. Sora gives Aladdin a pep talk, and this gives him a plan. They find Jafar, and Aladdin tricks him into using another wish and wishing to be a genie himself. Like in the first game, you can find him by smacking Iago and the lamp while he throws meteors at you, but you can only hurt him if these 3 pillars are high enough, which is extremely stupid. The special cards can help you with this, but I didn't get any during the whole fight. Jafar is sealed, and Aladdin sets Genie free, letting you summon him. Sora begins to wonder if there was another girl he knew that he forgot about. We then see that blonde girl drawing something again, and Sora apparently remembers another girl who was friends with him, Kyrie, and Riku, but the others are confused why he's never mentioned her until now. Moving on to Monstro, they find Pinocchio, who tells them about him and Geppetto getting eaten. He leads them to Geppetto, and they talk a bit, with Jiminy worrying about not being able to guide Pinocchio. Wow, someone's got an ego. But Pinocchio seems to have vanished, so we need to find him. Once we do, he says he wants to help Geppetto escape since he feels responsible for getting him in there. But then he's trapped by the parasite cage, which is one of the most annoying boss fights in the game. The floor is covered in stomach acid, so unless you're on these very small rotating platforms, you will constantly take damage, which can't kill you, but it can interrupt your attacks. So you have to jump on these, which isn't easy to do, especially while avoiding the cage's attacks and trying to hit it. The special cards make it so you can stand on it, but only for a few seconds, and getting them seems completely random. I hated this boss, it took me like half an hour. Upon escaping, Pinocchio suggests they try and get Monstro to spit them out, so we head to the throat and fight a bunch of Heartless quickly to free them. And Jiminy says Pinocchio might not need him anymore. Outside, Sora begins to remember more about the other girl, like how she was good at drawing, and one day she just left, but he still struggles to remember her name, which the others think might be deep down in his heart, and they'll learn it if they go up higher. Axel and Larxene talk about how Sora's memories are taking root and decide to give him another test, because apparently they're trying to overthrow the organization, and he's the key, somehow.
I know I'm barely talking about the levels themselves, but that's because there really isn't anything to say about them. They're all pretty much the same thing. You go from room to room fighting Heartless and getting map cards, and that's it. There's no special hazards, no creative level design, no puzzle to solve, and no real reason to explore since you determine when you get most of your treasure, which isn't always helpful in the first place.
All that's left for this group is Halloween Town. They're greeted by Jack Skellington, who tries to scare them and complains about the Heartless running amok. They speak with Dr. Finkelstein, who says that the heart can affect memories over time, so not all memories are accurate. He tried to make a potion that could fix this issue, but it summoned a bunch of Heartless, and now they need to deal with them. They suspect Sally swiped it, so we need to go find her. She tries to give it to them, but then Oogie Boogie swipes it for himself and runs off with it. We chase him down, and he drinks the potion, but all it does is cause him to be afraid. To fight him, he throws down dice, and you need to break the cards 3 times to open these gates, allowing you to attack him. Sora decides to not drink what's left of the potion, since he promised Axel he would find the truth on his own. Should you really be keeping promises you make to people in black robes? Because that's how you end up getting sacrificed. Also, the potion apparently causes unbalance in the heart, or whatever. Sora and pals are then attacked by Larxene, who taunts Sora for forgetting about that girl. She then charges Sora, causing him to drop the lucky charm that looks different from before. Sora remembers the girl's name is Naminé, and Larxene says that she gave him that charm. Fight time, and Larxene isn't too different from Axel, except that she uses thunder magic instead of fire. She gives him more world cards, disappears, and Sora is pissed that she's the reason he remembered Naminé. Larxene converses with Axel and this guy named Vexen, who says he came to perform an experiment that will prove if Sora is worthy of their plan. Sora charges forward, now determined to rescue Naminé, but Donald and Goofy begin to worry about him. We get a new selection of worlds to go through, and I decided to start with the 100-Acre Wood, which is the most uninteresting world in the game. Pooh is sad that he can't find his friends, so you gotta guide him over to all of them while feeding him honey to keep him moving. First bump into Piglet, then grab these balloons to find Owl, fall in this hole to find Roo, knock over this beehive to get Eeyore's tail, and jump in the correct pattern on these stumps to get Tigger's attention. Doing these lets you learn new sleights. If you do them all, Sora says bye to Pooh, and you get a Bambi card. Sora then finds Riku, who's mad that Sora is now mainly focused on Naminé and not him, but he also says Naminé doesn't want to see Sora because of something he did, and then he turns into his dark form. You find him, and he's insanely easy. Then he runs off, and Sora is worried about him, but the others inspire him to keep going. Now I'm going to Neverland. Tinkerbell asks them for help. They find Peter Pan, who says they're on Captain Hook's ship, and Wendy's been captured, but he doesn't want their help. They find Wendy, who says she wants to go home to London, which upsets Peter since they'll never see each other again, so he leaves. Sora, Donald, and Goofy head up the ship where they confront Captain Hook, who's forcing Wendy to walk the plank, but Peter swoops in to save her. Hook uses his sword and the ship tilts, which makes it harder to move. Peter is worried Wendy will forget about him, but she says that'll never happen. Sora then says that memories never really go away, because you can always be reminded by the right thing. Try telling that to someone with Alzheimer's. Peter takes Wendy home and says he's looking forward to seeing Sora all grown up, which will take about 15 years. They find Riku again, who says he's not going back to the islands, that he's forgotten about their other friends, and so is Sora. He says he's going to protect Naminé, and they fight again, which is slightly harder, but still really basic. Sora tries to reason with Riku, but he refuses and runs away. We then cut to Axel speaking with that blonde girl who's revealed to be Naminé, and he says nobodies can't be somebodies, but there is something she can do. Sora wonders why Riku is acting so differently from before, and everyone seems to forget about Kairi, which is concerning.
I think now's a good time to probably bring up my issues with the game's story and character writing. It is clear that the castle is having an effect on their minds, but unfortunately this has the side effect of making all of their decisions extremely stupid.
Now they are slowly losing more and more of their memories as they go forward, so it does have a reason, but I'm not really a fan of how much dumber they end up being. Sora especially becomes more distant from everyone around him, which means he's not as enjoyable of a character to be around, and Donald and Goofy are just kinda there for him to snap at. And from this point on, his main motivation is to save Naminé, but it's clear something isn't right, which means it's not really worth getting invested in. I don't really want Sora to save Naminé, I just want him to come to his senses and get the hell out of the stupid castle, but I digress. Next up is Atlantica, where Ariel asks them to keep quiet about her carrying something shiny. In the throne room, we find Sebastian panicking about King Triton's trident being stolen, and both Ariel and Flounder have gone missing. They realized Ariel must have the trident and go find her. Apparently Ursula made a deal with her where she'll tell Ariel where Flounder is in exchange for the trident. Sora and pals tell her not to trust Ursula, but Ariel says she has no choice, so they all go together. Of course, Ursula is the one who captured Flounder, and while she does free him, she grows huge and attacks. You just smack her in the face and tentacles while sometimes getting her to move down. I'm just glad this is much less annoying than the fight in the first game. Flounder apologizes for getting caught, and Ariel is worried about getting in trouble, but she decides to tell the truth anyway because it's the right thing to do. Snitch. Outside, Larxene mocks Vexen since his experiment, aka Riku, is not going as planned, but Axel tells her to trust him. They fight for a bit, but then this guy named Marluxia shows up and says to not disappoint him. We also learn that apparently Vexen is ranked number 4 in the organization, while Marluxia is number 11, whatever that means, and more importantly, Marluxia was put in charge of the castle and Naminé. He deems the experiment a failure and says that Vexen must eliminate Sora personally. He then speaks with Naminé, who says Sora made her a promise, which he then says was to protect her no matter what. I smell bullcrap. All that's left here is Hollow Bastion, meaning Deep Jungle is the only world from the first game to not come back. I guess the developers weren't Tarzan fans. We see Beast talking with Belle, who wants him to leave. Sora and pals then talk with Belle, who says she was kidnapped by Maleficent and that she can't tell Beast how she really feels. Then Maleficent shows up and asks Belle why she turned Beast away. She says she won't fall into her trap, and Maleficent takes her to another room. In another room, she demands Belle call out to him, or else she'll keep staring at her, but Belle refuses. Sora and pals show up, but so does Beast, and while Belle claims she never wants to see him again, he professes his love to her. But this was Maleficent's plan. As she tries to steal Beast's heart, Belle dives in, causing her heart to be taken, and Maleficent leaves with it, so it's up to us to get it back. After tracking her down, she reveals that Belle lied about not loving him because admitting it would open her heart, allowing Maleficent to steal its power. She threatens to take Beasts again, and turns into a dragon, so now we fight. Avoid the fire and you can get a card to summon a pillar, making it easier to hit her. Belle's heart is released, and the two are able to profess their love, which Goofy doesn't seem to be a fan of.
Which is kind of funny when you remember he's the only classic Disney character to actually procreate.
Sora, Donald, and Goofy are confronted by Vexen, who reveals that he's controlling Riku. He's like the other two organization members except he uses ice magic. After the fight, he says he dove into Sora's memories and forged a card from the other side of his heart, whatever that means. The other organization members wonder what Vexen is up to, and Marluxia orders Axel to dispose of him. We then head to one of the two original worlds this game has, Twilight Town, which is like Traverse Town, only a different color. Inside, Sora tells a story about Naminé giving him her good luck charm during a meteor shower, but then Naminé appears to apologize to Sora because all of this is because of her. Searching around brings them to this castle, where Sora says all of it feels familiar despite having no memories of this place. Then Vexen shows up again, mocks Sora for not being able to remember and being a servant to the Keyblade, or whatever. We have another fight with him, which is the same thing, only he has more sleights and health, meaning is a lot harder. I was on this one for a while. After that, Vexen says Riku's fate is to fall into the darkness, and that Sora will suffer the same fate if he continues to search for Naminé, since he'll become Marluxia's prawn. But then Axel shows up again and kills Vexen, again saying that they're nobodies. Well, that's awfully condescending. Sora asks what they are, and Axel says he wishes he knew before leaving. I thought they were nobodies. He rejoins Larxene and Marluxia, who say Vexen lesson wasn't just a test for Sora, but Axel as well. It turns out their grand plan is to use Naminé to lure in Sora and manipulate him into doing their bidding so they can take over the organization. And Naminé has been implanting fake memories into Sora's mind this whole time. Sora then finds Riku again, who says he's protecting Naminé and tells the same meteor shower story that Sora did, even having an identical charm, which causes more conflict. We then have a third fight, which is only marginally harder. He runs off, leaving behind the charm, which turns into a card. Donald and Goofy finally start to use their brains and realize that none of this makes sense, but Sora just snaps at them since he's too far in and isn't thinking anymore, so he just rushes up the stairs without them, despite Jiminy telling him he shouldn't. Axel speaks with Naminé alone and encourages her to go after Sora. He then says all of the pieces have fallen into place for him, and it's gonna be one hell of a show. Was not expecting to hear that in a Disney game. The next card leads to Destiny Islands, where Sora reunites with his non-plot relevant friends, whom he struggles to remember. Then he finds Riku, which also takes him a second, and he's not acting all emo, so Sora realizes that he's not the real Riku. Well, at least he's still able to somewhat use his brain. Then there's an earthquake, so Riku suggests Sora go to protect her. After running around some more, he's attacked by Darkseid, the giant Heartless from the first game. And this fight is interesting since breaking his cards is not recommended since it makes him harder to hit. Instead, you want to avoid his attacks, particularly the punch, since that's his most vulnerable point. It took me a while to realize this, so this fight lasted over 15 minutes. I didn't die, it just took that long to bring his health down. Yeah, that's another problem with the boss fights in this game, some of them go on forever. Sora calls out for Naminé and actually finds her. She says she wanted to see him, but not like this. She's just been lonely for so long that she beckoned his heart to come to her. He forgives her, but then another Naminé shows up saying it's not the real her and she's not in Sora's heart, or anyone's heart. He pulls out the lucky charm, but she says that he needs to remember the person who's actually special to him, and then he has a vision of Naminé turning into Kairi, the opposite of the vision he had earlier. This causes him to question things and continue to look for Naminé. Upon leaving, he finds the real Naminé and says she's not the person most special to him, which he agrees with. But before she can explain, Riku shows up and we have to fight him again. Okay, was it really necessary to have to fight Riku 4 times in this game? It's the same as all the other fights, only a hell of a lot harder. In fact, this is one of the hardest fights in the game since it literally took me half an hour to beat it. He just spams so many slides, it's ridiculous. Upon beating him, Sora is concerned, but Riku knocks him back. Naminé tells him to stop, which makes him collapse, and then Larxene shows up and reveals that it's not the real Riku. It was a replica of him created by Vexen and implanted with fake memories by Naminé, just like she did to Sora.
Well, if I were in this situation, I think that would be my cue to leave.
Larxene also reveals that they were planning on controlling him, but Axel screwed things up. She threatens to kill Sora, but Naminé tries to stop her, though she just shoves her aside. Sora then says he still made a promise to protect Naminé, not really, but whatever, and then Donald and Goofy show up to help. Really wish you guys did that earlier, because that would have made Riku much easier. We then fight Larxene for a third time, and it's the same as the other 2 fights. Next, she fades, which is code for dying, and Naminé tells the truth about everything she did to Sora, but if they go to the 13th floor, she can restore their lost memories, though they have to go through Marluxia first. She apologizes again, saying she was lonely, but Sora forgives her because despite knowing the memories are lies, they still feel right. I personally would be way more upset about someone screwing with my head, but whatever. He tells her to look after Riku and then heads up the stairs with Donald and Goofy. The trio struggles to remember who they're looking for, but Goofy says they should make a promise to finish this as a form of courage. We finally reach the last floor, which is just Castle Oblivion. It's huge and has to go through more rooms than anything else in the game, though it also has most of the same enemies, so it's not that threatening. Along the way, we see Marluxia call Axel a traitor, but Axel points out that Marluxia was the one trying to take over the organization, making him the traitor, and Axel's been a double agent this whole time. When we eventually reach the key door, Marluxia tricks Axel by hiding behind Naminé right as Sora comes in, making it look like he's attacking her. And since he has a reputation to uphold, he fights Sora rather than just explaining that they're on the same side, despite the fact that Marluxia is gone. Is everyone in this castle an idiot? Oh yeah, the fight's just a harder version of his old one. He says that Sora was worth saving, which confuses him, and then he just disappears. Great. You then have to run back to the corner and enter this new door to finally confront Marluxia. He thanks Sora for taking out Axel and tells Naminé to erase his memory completely, but this would cause his heart to collapse. She refuses since he forgave her, but when Marluxia threatens her, Sora tells her to do it anyway since he can just piece his memory back together. Then the Riku copy shows up and attacks because he still made a promise to protect Naminé, I guess. Marluxia summons a scythe and the battle is on. And this fight is absolutely brutal since he spams nothing but high number cards and uses a 0 every freaking time you try and use a slight. I was on this fight for over an hour before I just gave up and went back to earlier stages to grind up more high number cards. Once I did that, it was just a matter of knowing when to place down the right cards to block his attacks or cancel them with a 0, which still took a few tries, but I got it eventually. But that's not the end, as that turned out to be another copy, and the real one is behind this door. We head inside and find Marluxia in this giant spaceship, and this is the only fight to actually have a unique strategy to attacking. First, you gotta take out the legs. After that, a cycle begins where hitting him isn't too easily, so you want to wait until he plays a card to cancel it, which will then remove these cannons he summons, and then stop this bounce attack. Eventually, you can jump onto the back and attack him more directly, but you're constantly being pushed back, and when you fall off, the cycle repeats. Again, you want to rely on high number cards, and don't use any triple moves. I beat this one on my second try, and even that took me almost 20 minutes. Screw this game. After that, Sora seals the door shut, and the Riku replica decides to leave, but Sora tells him that his feelings are real, even if he isn't. Naminé then says she can restore their memories because they're linked together like a chain. Ha! But to put them back together, she'll have to undo the ones that she made, meaning they won't remember their time in the castle or her. Sora decides to go through with it anyway, and she takes them to these pods, which they'll have to sleep in for a long time. Jiminy says he'll make a note to thank her when they get out, and Sora promises Naminé that he'll try his best to remember remember her. He steps inside the pod, and the real Lucky Charm helps him remember everyone, especially Kairi. Naminé bids him farewell as he's placed in slumber, and the credits roll, with some high-quality images of different moments from the story.
But sadly, that's not the end of the game, since once you beat it, you unlock an extra campaign titled Reverse Rebirth. Yes, it has 2 subtitles, very important.
This mode is an extra campaign that follows the actual Riku as he awakens in the basement of Castle Oblivion to the strange voice telling him to sleep. It goes on about light and darkness or whatever, and if he takes this card, his sleep will end. Riku takes the card and ends up in Hollow Bastion, where it explains how memory cards work and sends him off. The voice later taunts Riku for falling under Maleficent's control and betraying his friends. It says that no one is here because he left everyone behind in his pursuit of darkness. Riku says he cast that aside, which only makes the voice taunt him more. He finds Maleficent, who says his heart has been encased in darkness, so he can only see people who exist in darkness, which is really just an explanation for why the only characters he'll see are the enemies and bosses. Riku says he doesn't want to surrender to the darkness anymore since all it did was cause him to lose himself, so he's gonna do everything in his power to eliminate the darkness around him. And that's really about it. Riku spends the whole time climbing up the basement and fighting bosses, while the organization also tries to rope him into their plans. Riku's combat works very differently from Sora's. He still uses the card battle system, but he has a set deck for each floor that's composed entirely of attack cards, so he can't use magic. So you're forced to use whatever the game gives you, which you'd think would make the game more difficult, but no. If anything, it makes the game easier. It is entirely designed around you having specific cards, meaning you don't have to farm for more. In fact, Riku can't find any treasure at all, so there's literally no point in exploring unless the game screws you over with map cards. But what makes things even easier is his special abilities. Now, normally Riku can't use slights. However, by breaking enemy cards, you can gain dark points, and once you reach a certain amount, he'll transform into his dark form for a limited time. In dark mode, you move way faster, deal more damage, and can use super strong slights, bouncing on enemies with your sword, shooting a strong fireball, or doing that charge attack he used in his boss fight from the first game. His level up system also works differently. He still increases his health, but he also gets more attack points, which let you deal more damage, and dark points, which let you stay in dark mode for longer. Every time you get hit or have your car broken by an enemy, you lose dark points, and once you run out, you return back to normal, but this only really happens in boss fights. Instead of Donald and Goofy, Riku can collect Mickey cards, which trump them tenfold, since it hurts every enemy on screen, stuns them for a few seconds, heals you, and reloads your deck, all in a second. Not to mention, Riku has no countdown for reloading his deck normally, and if all that wasn't enough, he can carry as many villain cards as he wants, which only makes things even easier. Riku goes through the same worlds as Sora, only since he's in the basement, the floor numbers are decreasing instead of increasing. And if you thought the story for Sora's world revisits were pointless and undercooked, Riku's have literally nothing. After Hollow Bastion, you just show up in a world, fight enemies until you reach the boss door, kill the boss, and move on. There is no dialogue, no characters, no plot, nothing. The only dialogue in this campaign is in between floors, and even then Riku's story is extremely basic. It's just about him learning to face the darkness in his heart, which is clearly a metaphor for his flaws. I mean, it works better than the main game story, but that's not saying much.
Now thankfully, Riku's campaign is only a fraction of the length. It only lasts about 4 hours, which is a blessing compared to the 14 hours it took me to beat Sora's.
There's no reason to actually go over most of the worlds since, like I said, there's no story at all, and actually going through them is nearly identical to the main story. Even the boss fights are exactly the same, if not easier, since they have less health and you can deal damage more easily with the dark mode slights. So now let's just go through his plot details as quickly as possible. After beating Maleficent, the voice tells Riku that he needs to accept the darkness to serve him again, and the voice is revealed to be Ansem. Riku quickly sees through this and refuses to join him, but then King Mickey suddenly chimes in and says Riku will always be able to find the light. Then you have to fight Ansem, and the most challenging part is the fact that his guard monster can block your attacks. After the fight, Ansem gives Riku memory cards and tells him that he can't run from the darkness, but Riku says if he just doesn't give up, then he'll be fine. Ansem also tempers with the darkness that remains in Riku's heart, which allows him to enter dark mode. We then see Vexen speaking with 2 new organization members, Zexion and Lexaeus, who say the organization is full of kinks.
Well, that would explain the black robes.
Zexion detects 2 new scents in the basement, and one of them was a convincing double of Maleficent, but they decide to wait and see what happens next. Riku says he can taste darkness, because that makes sense, and gets a vision of Mickey telling him to fight the darkness and not give up on the light. I then went through Neverland and fought Captain Hook. Zexion identifies the scent of Riku, and Vexen is fascinated by Riku's dark power. He believes Riku came to the castle because of Sora, and since Marluxia is using Sora for his plan, maybe they can use Riku for theirs. I went through Monstro and fought the Parasite Cage. Vexen confronts Riku and says that Ansem is not the Ansem he knows, as he belongs to both the light and the dark, much like the 2 of them. Riku snaps back at him in the 2 fight, which is like the fights he had with Sora. Vexen says the darkness in Riku is powerful, and the fight gave him the data he needed. I then went to Agrabah and fought Jafar. Lexaeus and Zexion discuss what to do about Marluxia's betrayal, and Zexion suggests informing Vexen, though Lexaeus has some doubts. God, I freaking hate these names, they are so hard to pronounce. I went to Traverse Town and fought the guard armor. Riku then finds his replica, who says he's embracing the darkness and challenges him to a fight, because we didn't find him enough times as Sora. Riku calls the replica a fake, but he calls Riku out for being afraid of the darkness and runs off. He then reports back to Vexen, who sends him to go after Sora. Riku sees Ansem again, who says that the replica should serve as a model of what Riku should be because he accepts the darkness. Riku thinks this is all some sort of reverse psychology, so he promises to keep fighting the darkness, much to Ansem's dismay. I then went to Atlantica and fought Ursula. We then see Vexen speaking with Axel and Larxene again, and we find out that they had Naminé remake the replica's heart to include Riku's real memories to help deal with Sora, much to the replica's dismay. I then went to Halloween Town and fought Oogie Boogie. Larxene mocks Naminé for feeling bad about Sora, but the Riku replica stands up for her because of the promise he thinks he made, which impresses Larxene. Though Naminé says Sora won't forget Kairi no matter what happens, because memories of her will only make his memories of Kairi stronger since she's her shadow. Well, that seems like a pretty important piece of information that we don't hear about again. I then went to the Olympus Coliseum and fought Hades, who was the first boss that actually managed to kill me. Lexaeus tells Zexion that Vexen was killed by Axel, and Sora is getting closer to becoming Marluxia's puppet, so their best option is using Riku, the real Riku. I then went to Wonderland and fought the Trickmaster. Riku finds Lexaeus and recognizes from his scent that he's a nobody. Lexaeus says Riku shouldn't fear the darkness, but instead he should take control of it. Riku says no, so Lexaeus attacks, and he uses rock magic, which is a bit more unique. After killing him, Riku has another vision of Ansem, who tries to take Riku's heart, but Mickey tells him to not give up. Zexion speaks with Axel and learns that Sora's going after Marluxia. This means they won't need Riku anymore, so Zexion asks for data on Riku's home. Riku feels one of the scents die, and Zexion tells them that Marluxia was slain by Sora. He says that Riku shouldn't want to see Sora, and throws him a card, which leads to Destiny Islands. We actually have a little story this time, since Riku sees his old friends and Kairi, but they just disappear, since, as Zexion says, Riku can only see dark beings. He says Riku was responsible for destroying their home, and then gives him a vision where he has to fight Darkseid. Sora then shows up and attacks him, saying he needs to see the light. Riku then begins to fade into the light, but he has a vision of Kairi, who tells him that no power can defeat him. He shouldn't run through the light, nor fear the darkness, as both will make him stronger, since the darkness is his power alone, and he can see through the brightest of light. This nonsense allows Riku to finally accept the darkness in his heart and escape the light. Sora is revealed to be Zexion, and Riku says he reeks of the dark. What is it with this game? It's smelling. He says he's not afraid anymore, and Zexion flees. He retreats to both Axel and the replica and tries to get them to help, but Axel tells the replica to kill Zexion as a step to becoming his own person. Whose side is this guy on? Riku hears Ansem again, who says accepting the darkness can allow him to control Riku, but the real King Mickey shows up to release his grasp. Mickey says he found Riku's heart thanks to a card and gives it to him, which leads to Twilight Town. Ansem then shows up again, but Riku realizes it's not him since the scent is different.
Again, what is it with Riku and smelling things?
Riku's guide is revealed to be this guy called Diz, who says that Riku exists between light and dark, and that he wants him to meet Naminé and make a choice of some kind. Riku heads to the castle, where he finds his replica, who goes on a rant about how he's a fake and will always be one as long as Riku is around. Take a wild guess what happens next. You fight him for the 7th fricking time. The replica begins to fade and asks where he'll go if he's not real and has no heart, but Riku says he'll go to the same place he'll eventually go, and now he's gone for good, thank God. Riku eventually finds Naminé, who apparently gave him that vision of Kairi, and she shows him Sora in the pod. She gets him up to speed and says that Ansem is dwelling in the darkness of his heart. Right now he's at bay, but eventually he'll awaken and take control of Riku again. But if Naminé seals Riku's heart, then Ansem will be trapped and Riku will lose his memory. Riku decides to not go through with this and instead just finish off Ansem for good. Outside he speaks with Mickey and Diz, who gives him a card that will awaken Ansem. Riku tells Mickey he has to face Ansem alone, but if something goes wrong, he wants Mickey to destroy both of them. Though Mickey interrupts and says he'll save Riku no matter what. We then reach the final floor, which is once again Castle Oblivion, and Ansem says he's waiting. Though this time it's just a really short hallway of rooms. Riku confronts Ansem, who asks why he would accept the darkness and refuse him, to which Riku says he stinks and has nothing helpful to give him. Ansem then surrounds Riku in darkness, and this fight is easily the hardest part of Riku's campaign. Ansem just spams attacks constantly, and while you have the best possible deck, it can still be really hard to deal with him just because of how many cards he has and how easily he can block your attacks. I just kept throwing myself at him over and over again until I eventually won. Ansem is destroyed, but he says he'll return, and Mickey comes in to help. Riku worries that part of Ansem is still in his heart, but Mickey says his darkness belongs to him. He says Riku taught him that darkness isn't all bad, and he wants to see where Riku's road leads. Riku agrees, and the two exit the castle. They find Diz outside, who presents Riku with two paths of light and dark, but Riku says he's taking the middle road to dawn, and the game properly ends. Though after the credits, we get a glimpse of this blonde kid looking over Twilight Town, but I'm sure we'll get to him later. Oh, will we ever get to him later.
Isn't really worth playing. Most of the worlds are reused from the first game, the progression system sucks, the story is just a setup for Kingdom Hearts 2, and the combat is one of the most unbalanced things I've ever seen in a video game. I'm hoping the remake will be better, and maybe some people will enjoy it, but I say you're better off just skipping this game and reading a plot synopsis if you really care that much. Oh, wait, no, you don't have to, because I just summarized the whole thing. You're welcome for that.